Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Man, it's a gorgeous day outside today. I mean, it's 53 degrees, sun shining, we got a nice light 20-mile-an-hour breeze or so. Got the chickens out, in the yard, getting some outside of the run time. Heck, even the bees are outside, well, I don't know if you guys know, but my wife and I keep bees. And so they're out buzzing around, enjoying all the dandelions that are coming up. And just a great day. I think I'm going to shoot a couple of videos, hang out with you all for a little bit, and then probably, I got a rack of ribs cooking out on the grill, and probably grab my grandfather's old Crossman 2200 pellet rifle, and just go ahead and plink with it in the range outside the shop here. Anyway, so today is going to do, I think we're on knife edge retention tips, probably number 5, I think. The first one was expectations of edge retention. The second one was corrosion, and how water, salt water, sweat, things like that will corrode your knife edge away. And basically just keep your edge clean and dry it off after every use. I typically just drop it on my jeans or on a shirt sleeve, something like that. I think the third one was anyway, they're numbered, and heck, I might even learn how to put them on a playlist. What we're going to talk about today is right after. So the last one was on the burr. Okay, so if you sharpen up your knife, and it feels nice and sharp, you can feel it on your fingertips. With Murray Carter's 3-finger edge test. If you feel it's sharp with your fingers, okay, you don't feel a burr on either side when you're palm stropping it. You take a little bit of hair off of one side of the edge, and then take a little bit of hair off the other side of the edge. You still don't feel a burr. You cut paper with it, copy paper, receipt paper, cigarette paper, whatever you got, and everything feels great. But then you go to make a cut, and the edge feels like it's going to cut, and then just completely fails. Chances are you've got a burr that you didn't remove completely in the sharpening process. Okay. Now, right after that is removing the distressed steel from the prior edge. Okay, this is not so much a big problem with burr-based sharpening. In fact, I didn't even know it was a problem, because I always sharpened with a burr. Then one day I ran into a friend of mine, Cliff Stamp. Well, on the internet, I didn't run into him. He lived in Canada, and he was talking about de-stressing the edge, and I thought, de-stressing the edge, okay, well, what does that mean? And he said, remove all the damaged steel behind the edge. And I thought, well, doesn't a burr already do that? But Cliff, at the time, he was really into plateau sharpening, is what he called it. So instead of sharpening one side until it creates a burr on this side, and then sharpening this side until it creates a burr on this side, and then weakening up that burr, getting it ready to remove it, and then shearing it off, stropping it off, ripping it off with a piece of wood, whatever your favorite method was. His idea was that you basically take your knife and then you cut into the side of the stone with it. Okay, and what that does, things are getting serious. We got our dry erase mark board out. So let's say this is your edge to start with, right? And okay, now this is going to be looking at the edge like this. Okay, so this is the side of the blade, this is the side of the blade. The point would be facing towards you or away from you, whichever, but looking at it like this. So you start off with a crisp, fresh edge, right? As you use that edge, it's going to act like a number 2 pencil, okay? It's going to get worn down. So the very edge is going to get cut off a little bit, right? Or worn down. Now, you would think that that edge would just wear straight down, right? Well, it's not going to, because, this is not a single point. This is the entire length of that edge, right? So, on an entire edge, say like that maybe. Okay, I'm not a very good drawer. Well, this one point might get worn, this point might get worn down, right? Well, this part right here might be kind of bent over. This part right here might have like little microchip. You know, this part right here might be okay. You know, just kind of depends on your cutting style and the work that you were doing over the lifetime of that edge. Okay, so after a while, this edge is going to look more like that. Okay, so the plateau method of sharpening, which requires good eyes and good light. Okay, bear in mind that's just the way it is. So it's not really the technique that you would use sharpening your knife on the side of a mountain, you know, in a foot of snow while you're dressing an elk out. This is more of a shop type sharpening technique. Okay, what you do is you take that worn edge and you cut the end of it off. Okay, just by grinding that blade into the side of your stone. Okay, what that does, once that's cut off and it creates a flat, it does two things. Okay, first of all, when you look down at the edge, you can say, oh, it's reflecting light. I see it. Okay, because if it's truly sharp, if this side and this side are meeting together at infinity where it should be, okay, you will not be able to see any light reflecting off that edge. If you see light reflecting off the edge, you know that this side and this side are not meeting together. Okay, so that's what it does first of all. It gives you a reference as to where the future edge is going to be. Okay, second thing it does, the second thing it does is it cuts off all of this damaged steel. Okay, so like I said, if you had, you know, that edge, say it's a 4-inch edge or so, and this part of it, say right up here next to the heel, let's say you were sharpening a piece of wood or something like for a tent stake, and you're really getting into it. Well, if you're really getting into the first part of that cut, this part of the edge is going to get a whole lot more force than this part of the edge will. Okay, so this part of the edge is probably going to be kind of smashed down, kind of rounded over, might even get a little bit of chipping or a little bit of rolling in there. Okay, if you just take that edge and you sharpen it back up, okay, then that little bit of steel right there that's behind where the old edge was, it's been damaged, okay, from impaction, from extra stress, from extra heat. If you're doing an awful lot of, say, cutting insulation, you know, or an awful lot of rope really, really fast, or an awful lot of cardboard. Let's say you got a pile of cardboard this big, right, and you're cutting it all down to where it'll fit inside the recycle bin, and you're just cutting after cutting after cutting after cutting. After a while, you put your finger on the side of that blade, it's going to be hot. Okay, well, if you're putting your finger on the side of the blade and the side of the blade is hot, with all that mass to get heated up, how fast do you think that edge heated up? Being not near as much mass as the spine of the blade, right? So you could even have some heat damage in there, right? So when you go to sharpen, if you're sharpening with the plateau method, okay, make sure, well, if you're going to sharpen, either way, make sure that you get rid of, you know, a certain amount of steel that was the old edge and a little bit behind it. If you're sharpening with a burr-based method, pretty much the act of bringing up a burr on one side, bringing it up on the other side, moving it back and forth, lightening it up and shearing it off will remove enough steel, enough damaged steel to get you back into good quality, you know, undamaged steel. If you're sharpening, now I'm talking light burr, okay, like, you know, 325 grit, 600 grit, somewhere around there. You don't have to go back to an 80 grit burr to get rid of all that damaged steel. If you're sharpening with the plateau method, go ahead and try that, what did he call it, bread knifing maybe technique, okay, where you cut into the edge of the stone, because that'll do you two things. One, it'll remove the majority of that damaged steel that was right behind the edge. And two, it'll give you a nice visual reference. If you've got good eyes or optics and you've got nice good light, you'll be able to see as you're sharpening when you can't see the edge anymore. When you can't see the edge anymore, go a little bit farther and you're probably going to be about sharp. So anyway, symptoms of that. Okay, so if you've got this happens an awful lot with stroppers, okay? Guys and gals that like to strop an awful lot or use high grit stones to maintain their knives all the time. because stropping just kind of aligns the edge back up, cleans the edge, and might remove a little bit of material at the very, very edge, okay? It doesn't remove enough material to get rid of that damaged steel, okay? Very fine grit stones are kind of the same way. Worn stones, which we'll get into that, I think that'll be the next video, are kind of the same deal. They just don't remove enough material to get past that damaged steel. So symptoms of an edge like that would be an edge, say you got a knife, you know, straight from the maker or straight from the factory, right? And it's sharp right out of the box. And you cut with that thing, and you cut with that thing, and cut with that thing, and it works really good, and you're thinking, man, I got a great knife here. Well, then you go to sharpen it again, or then you go to, you know, touch the edge up. And that edge, it comes back to sharp, but it just doesn't hold that edge very long. And then you find yourself going back to the strop, or back to the steels, or another one, you know, like kitchen steels. I think I've got one. These things, you know, they kind of do the same thing. They just align that edge back up, but they don't remove that damaged steel, okay? But you'll have a knife, and it'll be working great right out of the box, and then it seems like every time you sharpen it, man, that edge just fails faster and faster, it seems like, every single time. That right there is a classic example of you're not getting rid of the damaged steel behind the last edge before you put your new edge on. Yeah, classic example. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.